is Dr. Paul Castrovillo, and he is from Idaho Department of Agriculture, not the U.S., but the Idaho Department of Agriculture. And he is an entomologist, and he's going to be talking about insects today.
Right.
So I'm going to have to take over. I'm going to go find a seat.
Hello.
Take notes.
So I'm Paul, and I know I won't remember anybody's names, but just since we're going to spend the next 3 hours together, if you want to tell me your name so we feel like we
At least introduced each other.
yeah, we know we're all friends.
All right. I'm John,
John.
and I don't think anybody's sitting here. Oh,
Marjorie, Chase.
Marjorie, John.
Diane.
Diane.
Terry Ryan.
Sally.
Sally.
Ron.
Rob.
Stephen.
Steve.
Richard.
Richard.
Francis.
Francis.
Sandy.
Sandy. Okay, like I said, I forgot them already, but at least we feel a little bit closer. So as Terry said, I work for the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, and the crazy thing about it is, back in the 1960s, when I was just a wee lad in grade school, I got interested in insects, and I said, this is what I want to do for my life, for my career. I'm going to go to college, I'm going to be an entomologist. So I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in entomology at the University of Maine in 1975. I got a master's in entomology at Michigan State. Then came to Idaho to go up to Moscow and get my PhD in entomology in Idaho, and I got that in 1982. And I loved Idaho, and I came from the east, but I came out here, and this is the greatest place I've ever seen. I'll stay here the rest of my life. So I got my PhD in entomology in 1982. I moved down to Boise and opened a comic book store. And I had a comic book store for 15 years. And I realized retailing was not for me, so I wanted to get back into science. So I spent 2 years trying to get a job, and of course I tried to get some entomology jobs, but I wanted to stay in the area. There weren't that many jobs, and most of the ones that I applied for, they said either, well, you've got a PhD, so you wouldn't be satisfied in this job going around talking to farmers, or you got your degree 15 years ago, so I'm sure you forgot everything you ever learned, and we've got new people coming out of college every year, so thanks, but no thanks. So I ended up getting a job with Micron Technology, because that was science, and they were hiring anybody that could go up and breathe back in 1995. They said, you don't have a background in semiconductors, but you have a background in physics and chemistry and research, and we'll hire you on the production line, and if you're as good as you say, you'll move up the ranks. So I worked in the semiconductor industry for 19 years, always thinking, boy, this is a decent job, it pays good money, and especially the last few years, I really don't enjoy going to work, so it's hard to walk away from a job like this, especially when you're 60 years old. I wonder if I should have taken an entomology job back when I got out of college. How different would my life have been? Would I be happy going to work? Well, 2 summers ago, 60 years old, 19 years at Micron, they said, oh, you're laid off. So I said, well, I'm going to try one more time for that entomology job. 60 years old, and who's going to hire me? I'm either going to be a greeter at Walmart or something. I'm going to luck out somehow. Well, all those decades that I wasn't employed as an entomologist, I did a lot of volunteer entomology work. I went out collecting insects on the weekends just because I loved it. I worked for 20 years as an insect curator at the Museum College of Idaho. I set up an insect biodiversity survey that I've been doing at Deer Flat Wildlife Refuge for the last 9 years now. So this job at the Department of Agriculture came open, and I said I'd give it a shot. And I looked at my credentials and said, you haven't been a paid entomologist, but everything we want you to do, like survey for insects, identify insects, go out, give public outreach presentations to talk to people about insects, you've been doing that for free for the last 20 years. So you look like our guy, so they hired me. It's about 15 months ago. So going from a guy who got his PhD in 1982 and never had a job in entomology, and my wife would always introduce me to parties as, this is my husband Paul, he works at Micron, but he's really an entomologist. Now we go to parties and this is Paul, he's the entomologist for the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. Wow, and I love it, and I'm having the greatest time in the world. And so I'm really excited to be invited to come talk to you guys, because again, this is actually part of my job, to come talk to people about insects. Who would have thought they'd pay people to do stuff like that? But they do, and I get to do it. So, I was contacted, I think it was by Terry, or somebody that works with Terry. Can you come up and talk for 3 hours about insects, ecology, and insects, and blah, blah, blah? I said, yeah, that's great. And the funny thing is, down in Boise, the master naturalists down there, right about the same time, they asked me if I could do the same thing for them. So next Tuesday, the presentation I'm giving you now, I get to do it all again next Tuesday to the Boise people. So my task was, can you come and talk about insects and insect ecology and stuff like that? I said, yeah. Now technically my job is to survey the state for invasive insect pests, things that we don't have in the state or got in the state recently and we're worried that might be here. So I'm out looking for them. So that's what I deal with mostly. I don't deal very much with like native pests, bark beetles. People call me about bark beetles, and I tell them what I know, but I say that's not something I really deal with because they're native. They've been here. Other organizations are working with them, so I pawn them off on
IDL or something.
yeah, people like that. So when I come to talk to groups like this, technically, since my job is with invasive insect pests, I'm supposed to do that at least part of the time so that it's an official talk from my job resume. So today, what I'm going to do, and my wife said, boy, that takes a lot of nerves to ask somebody to come and talk for 3 hours. Well, I love talking about insects, so I think it's probably tough to tell people they have to come and sit in a class and listen to somebody talk about insects for 3 hours. So I don't know who's getting the tougher end of this deal. I know I don't have any problem with it. Hopefully I'm going to make it interesting enough for you guys so that at the end of 3 hours you go, oh, yeah, I learned some stuff, rather than, oh, God, that thing was never going to end. So I'm going to talk, I put together a presentation about insect ecology and basic insect biology and stuff like that, stuff that I thought master naturalists want to learn about. I'm thinking that's going to run about 2 hours with our breaks and that sort of thing. And then for the last hour, I'll give my traditional talk about invasive insect pests, what I do in my job, some of the pests we're looking for, what ISDA does, why invasive insect pests are different in some ways than native insect pests. So that'll be the last hour. That's a presentation that I've given maybe 10 times the past year. Got that one down pretty well. I can give it 45 minutes if I talk fast and don't get sidetracked. I can give it in about an hour if I talk a little bit slower and digress a little. This first part about insect ecology, I just put this together the last 2 weeks. You guys are getting it for the first time. So, it may be more exciting because I'm giving it for the first time, and I've given it a bunch of times. I may also trip over stuff a little more than I thought since I haven't had practice. I don't know how it's going to work time-wise. I've told the people in Boise, this will be my test run, and I'll see where I need to add or drop out. We could get third of the way through and the 2 hours are up, and that's the end of that, we're into invasive insects, or we could get done in an hour and 15 minutes, and go, well, let's have a nice long break. Anybody got some really deep questions? So we'll see how it goes, but like I said, just, you know, you go to college and you could take a course about insect biology, you could take a whole semester. And you could take a course about insect ecology, and you could take a whole semester. And here I'm going to try and teach you everything I know about both those topics in a little less than 2 hours. So again, we'll see how it goes. I put together this little thing. You know, I know some people might have shown up with notebooks to take notes if you want. And some people just, well, I'll just sit and hope he says something and hope I remember it. So I put this together, and it's got some of the topics I'm going to talk about, and then space underneath the topics. It's like if this was a real class where you were getting a test, I'm sure everything I talked about, somebody raised their hand and goes, is this going to be on the test? Is this going to be on the test? Well, you know, so I guess you guys don't get a test from this, right?
No, we don't.
I didn't make one, so nothing's going to be on the test.
Except on trees.
What's that? Yeah, test on trees.
That was a fun test.
That was a fun test. And we actually learned something.
So there's not going to be a test, so the spaces I left on here are, you know, if I say something you think is kind of interesting, think you might forget it, you can jot it down, so you can go back later and go, he said something about these insects that take care of their young, or he said something about insect mouth parts that I thought was kind of neat. You can just jot that down. So let's get into it. What I'm going to try and move through, like I said, in the next 2 hours, the topics. I assume that most people here read part of that insect text that they told me they would assign to you guys, the natural naturals thing about insects. So some of this will be the second or third time you're hearing it, or the fourth time, or the fifth time, depending on how much insect background you have. Some of it will be, oh yeah, I've heard this before. And then hopefully some of it will be some new stuff that you never saw. I'm going to talk about insect biology, and then I'm going to talk about insect life history, you know, the things that affect insects as they're living out in nature. Because I figure that, you know, there's so many different ways I could have gone with this talk. I could have come in a natural way, and an easy way for me would have been, okay, we're going to talk about insects, and we're going to talk about what the different insect groups are, and these are the beetles, and this is what beetle is. And I say, I think you got a lot of that out of your book. And I'm going to talk about various insects kind of as examples. The stuff I'm going to talk about is going to be very general. Because again, I think if you're a master naturalist, you are interested in nature and ecology and wildlife and plants and everything around you. And ultimately, the questions always come into, well, what is this? And what does it do? And how does it tie in with this thing? And how, you know, rather than if I went and just told you about all these different insect groups, and for the first 15 minutes you go, and then by about half an hour your eyes are starting to glaze, and by an hour you're getting. So, like I said, I'm going to try and keep it more general so that it is how insects fit in, and that's, you know, what ecology is about. Again, using a lot of different examples so that you will learn a little bit about dragonflies, you'll learn a little bit about beetles and flies and that sort of thing. So I'll talk about insect life histories, different topics that I thought were interesting. And then, again, when people are learning about insects, especially people like that work for cooperative extension, you know, those people that I talk to, their experience with insects a lot is someone's showing them an insect, or they find an insect and they go, what is this? You know, my job is to try and identify this insect. And behind my desk, all the time, people bring things into my office and going, I found this in my garden. What is this? And that's the great question about insects. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about identifying insects and some of the things we do to identify them, and some of the problems we have trying to identify them, rather than just telling you this is a beetle, this is a fly, and then you go out and find something and go, well, it kind of looks like a fly, but it's not quite right. So I'll tell you some of the problems I've had over the last 50 years identifying insects. And then the last topic I put in there is, what's the point? Why do we care? Why are you guys even here? And I won't talk about that so much as if we have time and get there, I'll talk about it a little, and I might ask you a little bit, you know, why are you here? But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Like I say, it's my trial run. So insects, we all know they're animals, right? We all know they're invertebrates, no backbone. Arthropods. Arthropods, anybody know a characteristic of arthropods?
Symmetry?
They have bilateral symmetry. They have jointed appendages. They have an exoskeleton. Okay? Oh, yeah. So that's, you know, anything that's an arthropod is going to have those characteristics. And those are pretty broad characteristics, right? So when we get down to insects, insects are animals, they are invertebrates, they are arthropods, but we narrow them down a little more. And insects, characteristics of insects. The basic one, everyone's going to shout it out, insects have 6 legs, right? Okay. What separates an insect from everything else? Pretty much everybody knows. It's funny, but if you ask people what's an insect, everybody goes, they have 6 legs. Okay? And then you go, you know, is a spider an insect? Is a scorpion an insect? Blah, 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 blah. And
No.
I don't know.
No.
And so everybody kind of knows insects have 6 legs, but a lot of these other arthropods that are close relatives, nobody's ever really spent time looking down and counting their legs. So they're quite, I'm not sure. You know, spiders have 8 legs and scorpions have 8 legs. So they're not insects. Insects have 3 pairs of jointed legs. I said arthropods all have exoskeletons. So insects naturally have exoskeletons. And it's made out of a material called chitin. C-H-I-T-I-N. Chitin is what their exoskeletons are made out of. They have 3 body parts, right? Again, most people pick this up somewhere along the line. The 3 body parts are
Head,
thorax, and the abdomen. Okay, and we're going to go into that in a little more detail in a minute or two. They have compound eyes, which means that they have eyes that have many lenses on them. And for antenna, they have 1 pair of antennae. And some things like crustaceans, they have, I think, 2 pairs of antennae. So they're arthropods, they look a lot like insects, but if you can figure out what the antenna is, and here we get into other things, is when you're giving talks like this, it sounds so easy. Oh yeah, insects have 1 pair of antennae, crustaceans have 2 pairs of antennae, but next time you're eating a lobster or a crab or something, look at it and go, what here is actually the antenna? This thing sticking out here, what about this little thing sticking out? Is that an antenna? Is that part of the mouth? Is that a leg? It's always easier, it always sounds easier than it is, but we have to make some generalizations. So for insects, the great thing about insects, for somebody like me, and the reason I've been interested in them since the 1960s and still go out collecting insects every chance I get, because I always find something new and interesting. There are so many kinds of insects out there. I read somewhere that